difficult time getting their kids to re-engage after the universal reset. They're having problems in school, problems in sport, but more importantly, disconnecting from the family unit. Now, those type of problems are behavioral. The challenge is that the parents are using parenting from 1970 and 1980 and wondering why they don't work. So in this age, if you're still working on time out, you are so far removed from your kids, it's not even funny. And so I have been picking up some very interesting challenges from, I would say, the upper middle class and those elite, and issuing them that I can fix their problem in less than 1 hour. And so I have been going out to homes, working with children and family, letting parents really see that it is a parenting problem. And the analogy, which is never a good analogy because I get that on my Instagram post, because I'm going to make a dog analogy right now, and I'm not saying that kids are dogs, but if you've ever purchased a puppy and you take the dog to puppy training, the training isn't for the dog. The training is for the owner. And behavior modification for parents is for the parent. So if you're not getting the results that you're looking for from your children, it's not a children's problem, it's a parenting problem. And so we've been introducing a lot of these tools, and parents are blown away on how fast they work. Even with our own genius trainers who have children, they're like, oh my goodness, right? And so I invite you into the new book, Designing Genius. It's going to go into all different types of topics about time, money, focus, freedom, happiness, all those things. Today, we're going to dive into one of the chapters that really is at the baseline of understanding behavior and how you design a life specifically for you, something for you, not for everybody, just what it means to you, what you value, what you appreciate, the lifestyle that you want. That's what we call it, Designing Genius. And underneath that is that what you think is happening is not actually happening. And what I mean by that is decode what actually is happening. And I promise you, what I show you is what your brain currently sees, right? Because your brain can only see the information that it has been exposed to. So human behavior, that's why it works immediately, because I can expand your peripheral vision. So first of all, any flashing lights? Is this landing from anybody? Hey, Tony, good morning.
Good morning. Before we get to that, I just want to, again, just reintroduce the topic that what you think is happening really isn't, and that's what Amelia is going to be talking about today. And of course, we are streaming across several social media platforms. We're streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So for those who are listening and watching on those platforms, we are of course also on Clubhouse. So thank you for everyone who is on all of those social media outlets as well as Clubhouse. And for those on Clubhouse, we invite you, of course, to hit that little box at the bottom of the screen so you can share this room to your hallway and invite people in that you know could and should be here for this, because the topic that we're discussing today, not just the parenting aspect of it, but just the whole concept of designing your genius is something that everybody needs to hear about. So right now, if you will, share this room and absolutely ping people in that you know could and should be in here, because my friends, we can indeed change the course of someone's life just by bringing them into the right room to have the right conversations with the right people. And Amelia is one of those people. So make sure that you're sharing this room. And if you're watching on social media,
and
LinkedIn or whatever, share that as well.
The back chat. I think Tara's watching the back chat. So if you've got questions, if you do not feel comfortable speaking up on stage and you want to put the question into the back chat, I'm happy to follow along with that as well, right? Because again, the value is you bringing me into your life and your problem. That's why I'm here to serve, right? So don't be shy. Do not solve problems solo in your own mind, because you can only rise to the level of your current thought state. So where you are today, your thinking today holds you rooted in today. If you want to move, grow in anything, you have to be able to think like tomorrow. And the only way you can do that is with being guided by a mentor. For me specifically, my area of expertise is in human behavior, to be able to show you what behavior gets you today's results and what behavior must change for tomorrow. When I help people build wealth, the first thing that I do is I change the way they think about money. And you don't even realize you think about money differently because you're not side by side with somebody like me to show you the difference. If you talk to anybody who is in the G100, they will tell you that the biggest impact that they have had is by listening how I approach everything. Everything I approach differently than you do. That's why you are where you are and I am where I am. And I'm doing a major overhaul right now because I'm going somewhere else. I'm on the move. And some people will come with me and some people will not. The difference between the people who can travel with me and the people who cannot, 100% is being able to keep up with my thought process. That is what's holding you where you are. And I am telling you, all of this, I realize is controversial. I know it makes some people feel bad. I know it triggers abandonment and I'm not good enough and maybe worthy issues. All of it is decoded into the new book, Designing Genius. All of it is included with games and exercises for you to be able to put into your home to start changing the way you approach everything. And what I want to be able to help you today is to tell you what is really happening underneath the problems that you are wrestling with. So good morning, Tara. I can see you're on here too. Thank you for all this week. And Patricia has been knocking it out of the park. Her and Scott have been knee deep in this material, and we have the most interesting conversation between I can't believe she just said that and I can't believe she just wrote that. And so it has been so much fun. So big thank yous. If you guys are not following Patricia and Scott, you need to be. If you're not following Tara, you need to be. We have an interesting gang here that is moving at a rapid pace as we start changing the mindset for time, money, focus, freedom, happiness, joy, relationships, parenting. All this we are diving into aggressively because that's the only way I roll. So good morning. Anybody want to chime in?
Yeah,
good morning. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Tarico. You know I'm not going to not jump in. Just what you're sharing about people unlocking the genius. I'm sure there are parents here listening right now, right, that are actually conflicted with that mindset shift. You said they're using these old strategies with their children and not recognizing that they're actually pushing their children further away. How do you shift the culture of the mindset that I'm not setting proper consequences for my children. A lot of people want to discipline their children, but they're not training them. So how do you shift from that mindset of discipline to training?
That's awesome.
And is discipline training?
Yeah, such a great question. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm working with a enormous amount of young boys at the moment. Boys from the ages of about 14 and 50 are my youngest, and they go up to about 19 to 21. Massive calling to be able to come in because parents have this sense that they're losing their sons, and their sons are hanging with the wrong crowd, and their sons are moving off track on what they believe they should be doing in their life, right? So that's the reason why my phone is ringing. And here's the very first thing that I try to help parents understand, and I will give you the behavior modification that I'm driving home, right? So first and foremost, boys, right, between those ages of 14 and somewhere around 17, which is historically the generality, right? So some a little bit earlier, some a little bit later, but generally speaking, between 14 and 17, in the rites of passage, as a boy becomes a man, one of the things which is very normal is to push back on time, money, and freedom, right? In order for them to learn to become a man, one of the first things that you will see in this age group, about 14 to 17, is that they do not want to ask for money. So you will see things like stealing, borrowing, interesting negotiations on how they get their hands on things that are valuable, anything other than coming and going, Dad, can I have $20, right? They do not want to do that. And it is a positive instinct in their behavior. It is something that parents fight. And so what they do where they're like, you have to do this, you have to do that, all this kind of stuff. And none of that works. And so what I start to drill down for parents is that most humans do not like to ask for money. And so one of the fathers that I was just with last night, I said to him, okay, you have an overdue invoice in your business, pick up the phone and collect the money. And he's like, well, I'm like, right, hem, ha. I'm like, why are you hesitating? And it's like, it's the thing that he likes to do the least, is to call and collect on money, to call and negotiate a bill. I'm like, if you are in your 50s and you are struggling about asking for money, why are you finding it so hard that your 14-year-old doesn't want to come and ask you for money, right? It is the behavior that is innate, right? And then the second one is he's repeating the parenting style because the parents are uncomfortable with money. The child subconsciously is uncomfortable with money. The father isn't wanting to ask for money, and the son is being forced to ask money by his parents. And so I very quickly created a game in the house to where the son can earn money on his own without asking permission. Same thing with time. If you've ever met an alpha personality, they do not like to ask permission for anything. I have a quippet that I say, if you ask me, I will do anything. If you tell me, you have declared war. So when you're raising children who have aggressive personalities and you are expecting them to come and ask you for permission, it is going against the grain. And you don't want to raise emasculated men or women. You have to prepare them for their future self, to be able to speak up for their needs, to be able to ask and have a decent relation with money, to organize their time, to determine what freedom means to them. And then when you see it in your children, you're punishing them for the instinct you actually want them to have in their adulthood. And the way you're going about it is causing children that continue to be stuck. Oh, I have to ask my mom and dad, right? You're not raising little individuals. And so the games are helping the family all heal with time, money, and freedom, because all humans want to have control over those three areas of life. Is this resonating for anybody here?
Big time.
Yeah, that's good.
Big time.
Yes.
1,000%.
1,000%.
Amelia, so something that I implemented with my son is exactly, he was 14, he loved playing video games, and he would challenge me about the video games, but I said to him, instead of us arguing about the video game, how about this? You love coding. Why don't you give me an hour of coding for every hour you spend on the video game? And when I did that, we had no more arguments about the video game. My son started calling me and saying, Dad, I finished that level of coding. Could you pay for me to go to the next level? And so he learned how to build video games for himself now as a result of us having that agreement. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. And some parents don't understand it's all about how you expose this information to your children. And it either challenges them or it grows them. And you're looking for the growth than the challenge.
Absolutely. One of the other things that we do in the home, right? So in my family and all of the kids that I'm working with, is we have something called $100 fine, right? Young kids, and you can go all the way down to like 8, 9 years old of the kids, that if they figure out a better way to solve a family problem, they automatically get $100. And I will tell you, you will be blown away. Now, the reason why I say this is that if you are over like 35 years old, you Google things. If you are young, you YouTube things, right? The way their mind seeks information and their relationship with technology is 10 times what it is for us. And so use your children to solve family problems. It was my kid who said to me, why do you go to the store? And I was like, what? What do you mean, why do I go to the store? Who's going to do the grocery shopping? And they all said the same thing, Instacart, right? They set up the system in our home to go from the Alexa that automatically drops into the shopping cart of the different stores that we like. And all I have to do is the thing says to me, autofill for Whole Foods. And I just say, yes. And then it magically appears at my door. And so start proactively encouraging your kids to solve everyday problems, because it is the number one life skill that they need. If you want to create future success, future leaders, start at 7 and 8 years old and say, how would you solve the problem? And instead of telling them no, implement their ideas. Even if their ideas are not exactly 100%, what you want to do is engage creating the recovery energy, right? So that they get natural endorphins by seeing their ideas visible within the family, because they'll bring more, right? This is how they learn time. This is how they learn problem solving. This is how they learn money. Reward them with what they have value in. Video games. Kids love video games. That's a value. That is equals money, right? And so again, figure out what drives value to them. My kids love if I will play games with them. I suck at it. I completely suck. But the purpose of it is not for me to beat them or be good. It's their way of sharing something that they're interested in. And so these topics of what's happening, right? What's happening is that is how they connect with me. What's happening when you're trying to discipline your kids your old-fashioned way and you're not getting the results. If you're not getting the results, the issue is on your side. I'm going to say that again. If you're not getting the results, the issue is with you, not the child, because you're asking a child to come up to your level. To solve any problem, you must come down to where the problem lives. The parent must come down to the 8-year-old. The parent must come down to the 14-year-old. You have to scale down and meet them where they are and create the stepping stones out. But if you do not know how to step out of the problem, you can't solve them. You cannot teach what you do not know. And most of the parents that I'm getting called into are saying, my kids have problems with money. And I go, isn't that interesting? So do you. My kids have problems with their temper. Interesting. So do you. My kids have interesting because they're having problems with relationships in school. And I'm like, let me mirror your marriage for you, because this marriage sucks. And that's why your children suck at relationships. Fix your problem, you fix their problem. Deny your problem, you sound absolutely insane to your kids. And if you listen to them talk, they say that. My parents want me to do X, Y, and Z, and they haven't even figured it out.
No
they want me to
credibility.
be happy, and they're miserable.
Well, as the saying goes, kids don't do what we say; they do what they see. And I just want to add a little something to that. By the way, the conversation this morning is just absolutely genius. Pun intended, not pun, but it's absolutely genius, because the reality of it is there's something that I also want to add to the whole behavioral thing, and coming down to the level of the problem. It's also important, as we're speaking to our kids, is actually physically go down to the level. So if they're shorter, the smaller they are, get down to their eye level. So you're coming from a place of sameness and not superiority, right? Because that there's automatically like a bit of a resistance. And as a dad of teenagers, they push the limits, right? Because that's what they do. The hormones force them to push the limits, and nobody wants to come hat in hand yet if they come out with a solution and rewarding them. So that's brilliant. That I wrote that down, $100 bill to help solve family problems.
That's another thing. That's another great point, Tony. So in personal relationships, right? So your husband, your wife, your significant other, just a rule: never argue standing. Never argue or disagree standing. The way the dynamic works between men and women, or masculine and feminine energy, right? We're talking about energy. Is that, now I'm going to tie this to intimacy. The bigger, stronger, more firm masculine energy is a trigger for females, right? It's a trigger that we actually would like there because it's part of our attraction. But if you use that same energy in conflict, it will show up in your bedroom. So in order for two people to have a healthy communication and come to a healthy conclusion, you should never disagree standing. To get into a comfortable position, to equal out the energy, right? To neutralize it so it's not masculine or feminine. To say, is now a good time? Could we sit down for a second? I would like to talk about X, Y, and Z. If you remove and separate your sexual bigger energy, which means stand up, right? So the minute you get bigger than me, there is a trigger that happens in me that is going to have me think about the things you want me to be thinking about. But if you use that same energy and you make me feel bad, now when we get to the bedroom, I'm confused. But if you only use your energy to trigger me sexually, and when we're talking, we're sitting down with neutral energy, then I am never confused. How does that one lay?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because not only that, there's always that term, why can we just sit down and talk about it? Think about how often you've heard that, because when you sit down, more often than not.
Most couples disagree standing.
Yeah, and listen, and it's happened with me. It happens, and what happens inevitably, we communicate with our body. Our body language speaks so much more than our words. So when we're speaking, if we're standing, we have much more mobility, so we can be, as men, as an example, or as women, they can be more forceful, like kind of lunge or flail their arms a lot more. So it's much more intimidating. But when you when you sit down, we're more equal in height, right?
Especially for you, Tony, right? Because you tower over your wife.
But when we sit down, we're not that difference in that much of a difference in height. So, and I was actually going to make that exact thing, right, that exact example, because I'm probably, I don't know, it's not a foot, but I'm probably 8 inches taller than she is. And when you're standing, it is a significant difference. Yet when you sit down, you're more at eye level, so it's easier to not only to speak. Actually, it's easier to listen than it is to speak. I should say that.
That's right. And you can then train yourself that when you use that energy, right, that you swoop over her, you come down for that kiss, she's like, he wants to have sex. Versus when you swoop down on her to tell her, you didn't do the dishes, right? You don't want to confuse your sexual energy.
I never thought about it that way.
And this is what I'm telling you about. All of these the book, Designing Genius, is filled, really, page by page by page, with these noodle thoughts, page by page by page, to help you decode how your mind, how your body, how your words, all that serenity and recovery, how it is affecting your entire life. If you want to change the way your life feels, you must understand the behavior and the mindset that is showing up in your current thought state. The entire book is filled with these quick little quippets that allow you to do things like this. Sit down from your partner, sit down with your children. It helps you understand how to set up their energy in their room, how to change the communication, how to lean in to teach your kids to do the things that you want them to do by understanding what developmentally are they doing. Just like I was explaining with the young boys. Young boys need to be pushing back on the strongest energy in the home in order to groom themselves for their life. Now, women do it, but they do it differently, right? Men push, women pull, right? That's why generally young girls are very noisy, very, very noisy. Anybody who's ever raised a little girl, it will drive you freaking crazy. Why this? Why that? How come? What do you mean? Women push out. Women pull in and men push out. And they're trying to pull in that energy by going, why? How come? All that stuff, right? And so all of these tips in the book are explaining to you how to create a behavior to move people where you want them to be. And that's literally why I say, if you really understand behavior, you can get what you want from anybody. You can get what you want from anybody because you have a behavioral tool that they're actually going to fall right into what it is you're actually trying to do.
And sometimes just letting them know. And as a dad of two teenage boys, I literally had this conversation with, and I've had it multiple times, but I had this conversation with my youngest just over the weekend. And I said, look, I know you're pushing back because that's just what you're supposed to do. Just know that you're going to face a lot of resistance from me. But I understand. And he's like, well, no. I said, actually, yeah, that's just part of the journey. You push to see how far you can get. And that's part of growing up. And just to reiterate, and you said it already, I'm going to say it again, is that kids are going to experience life based on the life that they grow up with. So the relationship that you have with your friends, with your family, and more importantly, the relationship you have with your spouse or significant other or their mom is going to set the way that they're going to have the relationships with women in their lives, with the girlfriends, with their future partner or whoever it is. So again, it's so important to understand that and make them aware of that and be aware. So oftentimes when men and women have arguments, it gets so ugly. And I tell people all the time when I'm coaching them or I'm consulting or whatever it is, I say, be careful what you say because the words you speak really matter and the kids are listening to it and it goes into their programming. And, and in fairness, my wife says all the time, because me and my younger son tend to butt heads a little bit more. She's like, because he's so much like you, I told you. So it does happen. It's inevitable. They pick up all the good and bad. And before I give you back the mic, Amelia, and have you take another question, I'm just going to reset this room. Again, thank you for everyone that's watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And of course, thank you for everyone that is here with us in Clubhouse. If you're on any of the social media platforms, we encourage you share this video because there's so much great content here that every one of us can really learn and grow from and take back and apply today when we're having conversations, whether it be with our significant other or with our kids. And we can really indeed help change the trajectory of somebody's life by sharing this room. So share this room or share the link if you're on social media, if you're on Clubhouse, share this room, hit the little box at the bottom of the screen with the arrow. And of course, if you'd like to watch us live, if you're on Clubhouse, you can just go on social media and watch us there. And of course, we invite you, if you're on Clubhouse, to invite people in, ping some people in. Let's make this room even bigger, because the bigger the audience, the bigger the impact. And again, thank you for everyone who's on the stage as moderators, as speakers. And of course, we thank you for being in the audience, because without an audience, we couldn't have a stage. So thank you very much for that.
And the good thing, Tony, is for the first 100 people who buy the book,
yes,
we have put together 3 calls. One specifically on parenting that will allow me to bring you the tools around parenting, right? Because we know we're going to have strain and resistance with our kids, we break that in so that you're straining on a very specific category. So instead of it just being a general, okay, my kids are just pushing back, we decode the behavior one by one so that the child knows what they're working on, and the child can then start to identify the parent's relationship with the strain versus their kids. You want to move your kids from one group of friends to another group of friends. The only way to do that is by piecemealing it together so that they understand where they're being encouraged to push back on that topic. So we've got, for the first 100 people, we will invite you into an amazing, incredible webinar around parenting, another one that has to do about money and wealth generation, and then the other one that has to do with relationships. And that's relationships with your team, with your companies, with your neighbors, with your colleagues, with your friend group. We're going to dive into those 3 areas because they seem to be the most popular. So the first 100 people, you will get a private link to these webinars. We will go over the material. You will get very specific games and exercises for your problem in your home. So I am excited.
And I'm just going to say, if you're hesitating getting that book, let me tell you, just those 3 calls alone are worth thousands of, actually they're priceless, but if you were going to pay for them, they'd be thousands of dollars, but they're absolutely priceless because it's going to show you a different way to carry on in relationships and finance with your kids and everything else. Just any one of those calls is worth 10, 50, 100 times the price of the book. So make sure that you click that link above.
So Patricia, I hear you. So Patricia's my partner in crime on this. She is so sick of talking to me. It's not even funny. Hello, Patricia.
Hey, Amelia. So, things are changing quick around here. And so in the last 10 minutes, we have added a feature to the checkout page because we had several people reach out to us and say they wanted to pick up a copy for a friend or a colleague, and we didn't have that feature before. So there is a box that you can check on that checkout page that allows you to pick up an additional copy, and you will also get an additional ticket to that 3-part series with Amelia, where she's going to be live answering questions. So if you've spent a lot of time in this room and you feel like you never get to get on stage and ask those questions, this is going to be the perfect time to join a group of people and raise your hand and get your questions answered by Amelia. So I just wanted to point that out.
And Mary Lynn is asking the name of the book. The book is called Designing Genius, and it's at the very top of the page. There's a link. If you click it, it will take you right to the book's landing page. There's a video. There's all kinds of information on there as far as what the book is going to go about. But what I'm telling you is chapter by chapter, it is going to go over a way for you to evaluate your current thought state, which is going to identify the gap of why you're not where you want to be, and give you the modification tool right there within the chapter. And if you'd like to go through the course, that will be coming as well, because I know that just from what we're doing right now with some families and some of the companies, they actually want to have everybody buy the book in the company, and then we're actually taking them through. So we will be doing that as well. But I'll tell you right here and now, since Clubhouse is like my family, Breakfast with Champions has been my family for over a year now, with Glenn's support and a lot of the other mods here, the first 100 people, I am so excited to work with you because behavior modification works immediately. And so please, I welcome you. It's going to be fun, and you will be really just fascinated. I think every time, Patricia, I talk to you and Scott, and both are always like, what? Where did that come from, right? Because the tools work so quickly.
Amelia, we have a question in the chat. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Tara, how are you?
I'm amazing. I'm just trying to man all these questions here. Actually, there's a couple questions. So the first one is from Leanne, and she wants to know, how do you get adult children to pay rent?
Oh, that's awesome. That's wonderful. So again, it's a matter of first identifying what they value, right? So if you're asking a kid or anybody to pay rent, that's because you value what it costs to own a home or to have a roof, right? It's something that you understand. Children don't understand the cost of overhead, right? So right out of the gate, what you're asking, they do not understand. They literally do not understand. And so we have to think about what is the underlining ask of what you're really trying to do. Are you really trying to get them to spend $100 to the family unit? Are you really trying to teach a life lesson? Like, what is the purpose behind charging them rent? And then from the purpose that you're, right, the lesson you're trying to deliver, then to use the behavior modification for it to speak in their language. I have found for like teenage-ish, right, so 17 to 20 something, because they don't understand the value of a home, right, or a place to live, what works better is for them to contribute to what the family unit does offer that they do value, right? And so it may not be the home, right? It may be something else, right? So if you are the home where the kids hang out and those kids all eat all the snacks and yada, 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 the contribution that you're looking for is $100. And so now what it is you create a game that be able to allow them to contribute the $100, earn the $100 by offloading something that you value. So if I value having my friends come and hang out here, that's what I want, and you value, let's say, the cars being cleaned, then I'm going to trade you having friends over for you cleaning the cars. So monetarily, we're both exchanging 100, right? So if you're trying to teach them about paying rent, you have to start with what happens before paying rent, which means there's 5 things that I'm currently doing that I do not want to do that you can do to contribute. Once they learn how to contribute, now they have that part of the brain developed so that when associated with rent, they understand that. But if they don't already value and understand contribution, then you are speaking into dead air. They don't have a place in their brain formed. So first teach contribution and then teach rent. And the way to teach contribution is to make a list of all things that must happen for the family unit to function, and then put a number on it to say, okay, if you're 14, you can contribute 4 things. If you're 17, you can contribute 7 things. If you're 25, you can contribute 20 things. And that's how they start association, contribution, and value. And then you put that same thing and then put a number to it. Does that answer her question?
I think so. That was amazing, really. So the second one, because I know we're going to run out of time here, there's so many questions, is Angela. How do you help clients that are in a toxic, unhealthy relationship?
So the client, so I'm going to make the assumption that the client is in a personal relationship that is toxic, right? And so the only way you can help somebody see something that they're choosing not to see. Remember, that's denial. The behavior that is at the root of that is denial, right? So when we talked about this segment today, what you think is happening, is it really happening? Your current thought state, right, the conscious mind is in denial. The subconscious mind is aware, right? So subconsciously, I'm aware you don't value me. And the way I know subconsciously that you don't value me is because you don't put in any effort. Now, consciously, I want to protect myself. So because I want to protect myself, remember that's an innate human instinct, I'm not going to see it. I'm going to be in denial. And so if you are trying to help somebody who's in denial, the only way you're going to move them is if they have value in your relationship. This is where it oftentimes hits home because you think they value because you're a brother or you're a sister or a friend. And as you step back and do not contribute, right? So, for example, if you are interacting with a client and the client says something which is denial language, it is for you to push back and go, I hear what you just said, which is X, and I'm not going to participate in that thought. I don't see you that way. I don't treat you that way. And that behavior is unacceptable to me. To start demonstrating and participating in a healthy manner, because the more you increase the healthy interaction and not avoid it, remember, if you're avoiding the conversation, you're feeding the denial that they're in. We're just not going to talk about it. Well, if somebody's in denial and you're not talking about it, you're feeding denial, which is with the vibration that they're at. But if you behave in a healthy manner, it then pushes against the denial. Why is it that I feel so good and we can work through and talk about X, Y, and Z, and yet I can't get that from my partner? Remember, the subconscious mind is extremely powerful. Your subconscious mind always knows. It always knows. It knows exactly what's going on. It's the conscious mind that you have to then use behavior modification to either remove the veil of denial, which is by surfacing the things that you value that are more helpful, right? So if somebody has a non-effort partner and you show up with effort and tie the bow for them, I value you, and I know that me picking up whatever your kids at school adds value to you for X, Y, and Z, and I notice that your partner never participates this way. See, there's no way for me to wiggle out of that, right? You called the elephant out, you behaved differently, and you locked home for me a feeling that I actually want to feel from somebody else. There's nowhere to go when you behave that way with somebody that you're trying to bring awareness to. The words won't matter. The effort is what they're seeing, and then you tie the words to the effort. Did that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
This is good, people. This is good. This is what we want. We want the question.
Good morning, Amelia. This is Dami.
Hey, good morning. How are you, love?
I'm good, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to check that I pre-ordered the book before the seminars were attached. Will
You'll
I?
get it.
Yeah.
Yep. You'll
Okay.
get them 100%. We're just moving those for people who ordered the book last week. We're just moving them over to the new landing page, and you automatically will get exactly the same thing. Yeah, the first 100 people are the first 100 people. And so I really appreciate you jumping forward last week to order the book, especially since we had none of the marketing material up. Now we have the video, we have the this, we have all of that. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And absolutely, you will be invited into the seminars.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And so this is the thing. So before you even mentioned you had a book, I was speaking to one of my sisters, and she has an autism charity, and you know, there's a lot of us who just, you know, kind of being able to sort of realize at this age that, you know, in adulthood that we're on the spectrum. And so we've been holding these Zooms for people. And I said, oh, and I was telling them about you. And I was like, there's this woman that, you know, there's a way of like how you're concise, or how you put the things that need to be said in such a way that it's not so offensive to others. And I found that the kind of people like myself on the spectrum sometimes, and I'm also a Saggy, so we're very tactless and put our feet in our mouth. And I was like, this book is, you know, she needs a coffee table book where you can go and look at certain things and be like, how do I respond in this situation to still confront an uncomfortable situation or bring an issue to light without ostracizing that person or making them feel so offended. And so that's a lot of the times why I don't speak up, because I'm like, I'm going to say the wrong thing. And so, yeah, so this book feels like, you know, I was like, she needs a coffee table book. And now you're like, oh, I've got this book. And so my question is, like, for people who, you know, spectrumy or let's say neurodiverse, and they're operating in the world. How what how should they how could they utilize this book? Because I want them to invest in this, and a lot of us are like more into Audible and don't like necessarily like to read, or it takes there's different ways of processing. But I really feel just hearing you on stage and and just the way you bring your message and help people interpret their behavior and the tools is going to be perfect for so many of us. But I just want some type of tactic to be able to convince them that, listen, this is a different type of way to do it, but give it a try.
So first of all, I love this question. So the beauty about children and adults with autism or Asperger's, any of those versions of autism, is that because you didn't learn the filter, you're actually the most true and authentic. That's the beauty. I mean, there is no love like being loved by an autistic child. It is godlike because it is so pure, right? The part of the brain that learns to deny, that learns to lie, that learns to mask isn't developed in an autistic child. They don't have that. It's like a birth defect. They don't have the ability to learn the things that we learn that makes us lie, to makes us living an unauthentic life, right? And so there is such beauty in having relationships with somebody who's autistic. And so the way to use the book is start to learn why their non-autistic audience is masking what they're masking. And there is such beauty when you build a relationship between somebody who has a challenge and somebody who doesn't have it. The minute we open our mouth, we know we have a challenge, right? But right, just say a challenge and a non-challenge is the beauty is I get to be me with you, because all of the things that I learned to mask and hide and run aren't recognizable to an autistic person. They only see you. And when you can be you, that's all you ever want to be. And so the book helps both parties see the lie that you are telling yourself because it's the story that you want to believe, versus leaning into the life that you have built. And if you don't like the life that you have built, no problem. We can very easily build something else. But the longer you stay in the lie, all you're doing is wasting time. You're wasting time living with less, meaning less happiness, less time, less money, less things that you value. Because the people who live in denial, they keep themselves busy. Why do they keep themselves busy? Why are their calendars over full and they're still not productive? Because they are lying. The full calendar is a lie. That's why I say, show me your calendar and I'll show you your truth. If you are so busy that you don't have time to think and look at yourself in the mirror, it's because you're living a life of a lie. The busy is your behavior to not look at your truth. If you're busy because you don't want to face the fact that you're not happy, that you're not fulfilled, that you hate your marriage, that you hate your job, that you hate your kids, you hate your friends, but you feel stuck. And so I'll stay busy to help myself feel better. The busy is the lie. And so I can help you very quickly untangle it without blowing up your life. You don't have to blow up your life in order to start living a life by design. You can design your life and not blow it up. But what you must first do is see your reflection, your truth. And if you want to see a real truth, have a conversation with anybody who's autistic, because they only see the truth.
Amelia,
Yeah.
this is Limitless Figure. I have to run to a meeting in 6 minutes, but I had to jump in here. I have been seeing everybody, my nieces, my nephews. My only challenge now is how do I pre-order multiple books? Because I went in there, I'm trying to buy it for everybody. I'm trying to be like Oprah, your book, your book, your book. It's going to change your life. But it only allows me to do one. Do I have to do them separately? And then I'll give you my question real quick before I run to my meeting.
No, if you just reach out to, do you know Tara or Patricia? Do you know any of us on stage who have a key?
I just sent in the message, I sent that same question about buying multiples, and Tara responded that I have to do it one at a time. If there's a way for me to buy, because I'm trying to buy for a lot of people.
We'll figure that out. Somebody will reach out to you. We'll figure. I don't know the answer, but we'll find the answer.
Perfect. Here's my quick question before I jump out, and I'm definitely going to listen to this replay 10 million times. So I have a really good family friend, loving, has one autistic child, has one amazing daughter also. All of her kids are that she named after me. Brilliant indigo child. She's loving, deep, a beautiful home, but she was raised back in the Gambia, traditional, very stringent raising, and I can see how it affects her kids that she loves so much. It is a challenge for me because I keep them sometimes, especially my namesake, but then I have fallen out with her because of the way she disciplines them when she lashes out and hits them with something. And other times she's so loving. How do I balance this? How do I? Because it's been a challenge for me. I even started staying away from them, and it hurts me because I love the kids.
Right. So, and that's a great question. Sometimes you can't save the parents, but you can save the kids, right? And so when you take a look at what is the most important to you, right? This is where you have to make decisions. You can't save everybody or you'll sink, right? And so she's older, she's more rooted, and she will only make the decision when it hits a pain point for her, right? People go to their lowest pain point before they'll make change. And you've got to let them fall as far as they choose to, because you can't make the determination of when they're going to start healing and growing. Some people live their entire life in pain because they choose it. And there's nothing you can do about it other than watch from the sidelines and go, that looks like it really hurts. When you want to fix it, I'm right here, but I'm not diving in to save you. But the kids are different. For the kids, you can start leaving breadcrumbs so that they realize what is a them problem and what is a mom problem. So they start understanding what is on somebody else's side so that they can continue to grow their indigo self, right? Especially since in that type of gift, there's a lot of stuff that lives outside of the normal box, right? And so if you're not familiar with that, you won't even recognize it. So by contributing to the relationship in the area of genius outside of the norm is going to start growing that part of their personality. So that may be something that you guys do together. It may be something that you experience together, but you want to create almost like a hidden language that when you say certain things, it resonates with a certain type of energy within them, right? So for example, something that is very powerful, and you've seen it in lots of movies, but most people still do not use it, is to look a child in the eye and say, I see you, I accept you, I love you, and I celebrate you. And any time that you feel pain, what I want you to know is that I see you, I love you, I celebrate you. Words with physical connection and eye contact is what they will go back to if you repeat it over time, right? To be able to give them a get out of jail card always. I give it to every one of my child clients, my clients that are underneath the 18 years old. I tell them unconditionally, you have a pinky promise with me. And for those people who are at Grow for God, Glenn Lindsay event, watch the pinky promise in person. a pinky promise that they can call me. They have my personal cell number. They can call me 7 by 24. I will come get them no matter what is happening and ask no questions. It is very hard to come and pick somebody else up and not ask questions. I had to do it with my own son. Both of my kids know what pinky promise is. Both of my kids know that they can use it. Rarely do they do. When my son first started driving, it was about 8 months after he got his license. He called me in the middle of the night, which is the call that no parent wants, and said, "Mom, am I too old for the pinky promise?" I said, "Absolutely not." He goes, "I need you to come get me." And so I had to pick him up. Obviously, something tragic happened, and I couldn't ask any questions because that's part of the pinky promise, to pick up without consequences and without the stress of answering 9,000 questions. The hardest drive I've ever had in my life. David was 23 before he told me what really happened at 17. But that pinky promise is something that is invaluable for people, to be able to have a promise that unconditionally you will show up without nagging them to death about explaining why and how come. So with those indigo kids, create that relationship, that you see them, that you hear them, and that you are there for them unconditionally without the question. The reason why kids don't reach out is because they don't know how to answer all of the questions that adults ask. That's why they run. That's why they hide. And that's why they stay in bad situations, because they don't know how to explain it to you. If you remove the stress and the anxiety to say unconditionally, I will just show up and lead you out, you will have such a deeper connection with young people.
That is gold, Amelia. Seriously, that is gold. I've not had that conversation with my kids in that way, but I absolutely am going to. Listen, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to have to pass this over to Dave Meltzer, and I'm going to let you close out in a second.
Yes,
I just want to remind everyone.
Over time, and I'm never over time.
Yeah, no worries.
I apologize, Mr. Meltzer. I did not see I'm 2 minutes over the thing.
But that was so powerful. What you just said was so powerful. Even if somebody just came in at the very end and just got that, it was worth the price of admission, so to speak. So for everyone, I'd encourage you, before we switch it over to David, make sure that you're going up top and click on that link. Pre-order that Design Genius book. So click on that link. And remember, David Meltzer's coming up. Always brilliant. Love listening to David. And remember that Amelia is back at 11 a.m. So in 1 hour, we'll be back here again. So stay for David, stay for Amelia. And we're going to be basically, the title of the show is "What Would Amelia Do?" So, and I know that you've gotten so much great value from her already today, as we do every Friday. Make sure that you're joining us. Click on that link, follow Amelia. And with that, I'll go back to you, Amelia, and then you can pass it over to David.
That's it. I'm just not going to waste any more time. Thank you, Mr. Meltzer. Thank you.